Welcome to another episode of The Buy Side, the place where we get real and we get real serious about talking about the business of inventory. We don't BS around. We bring it to you straight, no chaser. And there are no individuals out there that I believe bring it to you with no chaser at all, other than Mr. Jasen and Chris Keene from our friends and partners from Lotpop. They are here to join me today and talk to us really about not just the business of acquiring inventory, but all the data and everything you need to have in order to go out and successfully acquire inventory. And who knows? We may even take a little stroll down the AI path, because I know Mr. Keene had some things to say about AI the other day on his show. And so we may take a stroll down that path. But Jasen, Chris, welcome. Appreciate you guys joining us on the buy side. And I'm excited for this conversation today.
Thank you so much, man. It's cool to be here, man. I'm proud of you with this podcast, man. You're doing a great job.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's easy when I have good guests on like you guys, and we had Kramer on, and Glenn Lundy on, and David Long. So we've had some pretty heavy hitters. It's been a blessing, and the blessing just continues with having you guys on.
Yeah, I saw those people. I kept waiting. I'm like, is he ever going to ask us? I guess not.
Come on now.
Like all the times I have it used Carpalooza, but it's all right.
hey, Jasen, we've had him on Lot Talk as well.
Yeah.
Damn. Okay.
We're like 5th on his list or 10th. I don't know. Where was I?
Yeah, I don't know. But hey, Jasen, we finally got called off of the practice squad, and we've made it over to the buy side now. So
you guys know you're the A team. You guys know that. But man, Jasen, Chris, again, I'm
a pleasure.
I'm pumped for this episode because, when I first started getting, when I left the corporate world of buying cars, right? I left CarMax, I left off lease only, and out on my own. And one of the first places that I got to be, first conversations I really got to be a part of was at Used Car Palooza, and talking with Jasen and just hearing all the ways that individuals in the industry are looking at the information and the data. And so this conversation will be extremely meaningful for so many people out there who, need to hear this message and, need to talk to you guys as well. So, but, before we take a stroll down the path and talking about the data and information, Jasen, I understand I follow you obviously on Facebook, as well as LinkedIn, but on Facebook I see you're doing something that I've done before, and you're doing 75 hard. How's that going?
Oh, no, good. It's 64 days in it, so we're almost about 10 days away from being done. And matter of fact, it gets to the point where I don't want it to be done because you're just doing so good and the momentum's there, and which I can continue to do it. But it is, when we're starting to do, like, weather's breaking, it's going to get nice camping, this and that. It's kind of hard to squeeze all that stuff in. Again, it's excuses, but there's never a good time to do it. I think I'm gonna give it I'm down 20 pounds. That's the other thing. I didn't do it to lose weight, but it just all happens, right? It's not a diet or anything like that. It's more of a mind game. And I think going into the beginning of the year, just as a reset was, is real good way to get going. So I'll take 30 days off, then I'll roll into the phase 1, which is another 30 days. And see what momentum I can keep going from there. But I like I do my morning walks then, and it gets to, you get a 3 mile in, you get in, you take a shower, get ready to go to the office. You already feel like you already accomplished something, so it feels good.
Yeah, no, man, it's awesome. And I think phase 1 is they introduced the 5-minute cold shower in, and it's just I never made it past phase 1. The cold shower kind of took me out after I did phase.
When you do that for a couple of weeks, you actually start liking it, and I start looking forward to it. I'm like, this ain't bad. I like it.
I tried to. So when I did it, I started phase 1 in the middle of winter.
Oh,
and
yeah.
The cold shower was like, whoa.
Yeah, the cold bed. This is my 5th time doing it. I've completed it 3. The other 2, one I got knee injury, and the other one I got like the flu or something. Day 50, and got like the flu and was out for like 3 days. But
yeah,
this is the 5th time finishing at 3, so it's good. I like it.
Well, man, I love you know me, and when we first started talking, we found out that both of us, we all love First Form, and when I think about a company and I think about a way to do things, they just do it all. They do it all right, and so I try to follow a lot of what they do, and not that my podcast will ever go to the level that an Andy Frizella's podcast is going, because I don't use that kind of language, but
you never know.
But you never know, right? You never know.
You know what the funny thing is? I literally bought 3 cases of the energy drinks, and I sent you a picture of it. And do you know the emphasis of that? Look at the labels. You know how he is about labels and the whole I'm catching myself putting the labels. Yeah.
The minute you sent me that, so I'll tell you a funny story. I go to Summer Smash. I try to go to Summer Smash every year down in St. Louis, right? It's a big summer event.
Yeah.
And I was in Schnucks, and I walk in, and the cooler is just in shambles. And I stop, and I'm turning all these First Form labels around, and my wife's like, "What are you doing?" And it took, what it took me back, Chris? It took me back to when I worked at GNC years ago, and we had to go in retail. You called it blocking and facing, right? Like you had to go and turn all the bottles. I'm like, "Oh, this is what you do. This is it, right there."
Zone management.
There you go. And it's funny because when you think about old school retail and you think about blocking and facing and turning the labels, right? This is something, Chris, and this is something you talk about when you talk about on-lot retailing, right? When you talk about your display lot. And this is no different when you need to have those cars lined up and perfectly parked and the window stickers just right. This is the same kind of deal, isn't it?
Well, it really goes back to what Jason was talking about, with the 75 hard he's been doing. I mean, listen, viewers or listeners, what Jason just said was so easy to miss, and it's so minor. I get my walk in, I get my shower in, I'm heading to work, but I already feel like I got something accomplished. I haven't made it to work yet. It reminds me of that book by the old Navy Admiral, talk about make your bed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
It's those little nuances. And when we translate that into our world in automotive, listen, you could have the best buying strategies. You could have the best buyers in the world out there. You could have the best technicians. You could have the best everything. But if you don't take that cooler and face it, you block it, you face it, you don't make it appealing, all that work you did getting up to that point was for nothing. If Jason took that 75 hard and he took that, he took that walk, he listened to his books, he read his books, he listened to those things he's listened to, walked his 3 miles or his 45 minutes, took that shower, and then got to work and didn't apply those principles, everything he did that morning was for nothing.
That you're absolutely right, man. And it's one of the reasons why I love talking to you guys. But let's take a step back, because I said we were taking it slow, and we already dived in and started talking a little bit about the business.
I can't help it, Frank. I can't help
it. Look, I teed you up by talking about the parking, the lot, and making sure your cars are parked perfectly. So, but let's take a step back, because for our audience, Jason and Chris, how did you guys get connected? Because I always look at teams, and a lot of times you look at the dynamics of a team, and all of a sudden you see these powerhouse teams that are put together, and you just wonder, were they always connected, or did they bounce something off of each other and collaborate on something and then connect? So let's start there. Jason, first of all, so you're the founder of Lotpop. You're working for Cox Automotive. You're working with Dale Pollock, and you somehow you decided, hey, you know what? I'm going to go off and I'm going to do this thing because I want to help dealers in a different sort of way. How did that happen, and what brought you to that point?
Oh, that's a big story. I won't go too long on it, but yeah, I mean, 8 years on the retail side, 8 years with Dale and Viato, his first hire, back in 2005, so 20 years ago. I spent 7 years as a PE there and performance manager there. But my last role there was the director of the Eastern region. And they're concerned about giving me that promotion of the travel because I've got 5 kids. And at that time, 3 of them were still pretty young. And I told them, I said, yeah, I traveled for the first 3 years with Dale all the time. The only reason why travel slowed down for me was we did start doing Zoom meetings or go-to meetings. But a lot of my older accounts still liked me to show up. So I was traveling 3 to 4 days a week every week, and which was fine. Like I said, I thought I could handle it because I did it when Dale was there, but we only had 4 kids at the time. And so, they hired me. But yeah, I mean, a year into that as a director, I was traveling a lot, and I realized, I needed to be a better leader at home and church and things like this. When I traveled, it's basically coming home, my wife telling me what we're doing for the weekend, and then I leave again. Right. And so, and my wife was handling all that. And I had a situation with my son where he was at his game and lacrosse game. And, I was gone in New York. My wife's calling me. There's an issue at the game. And I'm like, man, why am I not there helping my son? What am I doing here, man? And so I had this idea for a while, and I always had this entrepreneur itch, but, I decided to walk away, no parachute, no savings, no nothing. Just, I walked away from a great job, great pay, great company. They took care of their customers. Over the years, I got to know Chris when working there. That's how we got to know each other first too. But yeah, I just walked away. I knew I had this idea. And matter of fact, I talked to a few of my dealers before I did leave and say, hey, if I did this, would you want me to help you out? And they said, yeah. And so that idea is kind of being like the used car director for these dealers that don't, it's a single point store. They have 70, 80 or 100 used cars and one manager trying to handle it all. And instead of being a consultant where I'd have to go in-house and travel, I said, well, how about we sign you up on a subscription, like a weekly call. I'm going to grab data. I'm going to look at your inventory, and we're going to meet each week and focus on where you need to move inventory. And so that's how I started the company 13 years ago, and I did hire some data entry people, hourly workers, but I didn't hire somebody to help me to grow it until year 3. And that was John Anderson, who was a client of mine for about 2 years, year and a half, 2 years. And he left the business. And I showed up for his weekly call, and his internet guy's like, no, John's gone. He quit. He moved to Texas and he's done. I'm like, what? So I called John. I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, I might go into real estate. And I'm like, well, I need help. I'd like to see if I can grow this company. You've been a client. You've been a GM. And so he decided to join me. But it's funny with his story. He thought he was just going to temporarily help me until he finds somebody else. And now here he is 9 years later. Throughout those years, I bump into Chris at conferences and stuff. I remember one time, I think it was in Vegas at a hotel, we're talking about the whole COVID stuff and everything and all those issues. I'm like, man, I wish he'd bring you aboard or whatever. But he was still doing this thing at Cox and stuff. And but after that, we end up circling back around to each other. Chris, I guess you can take it from here on, how that all worked out.
It was, and I'll tell you the end story to that was him and I standing out in the parking lot there at the corporate office, Kansas City. And there were numerous different occasions that we'd run into each other and loosely talk about, coming on board with them. And then it just happened to be the timing of everything was just perfect because, I'd worked for Cox Automotive for 10 years and they were great to me. But like Jason said, he and I actually met long before that. He was actually my performance manager when I was still on the retail side of the dealership. And he was my performance manager with Viato. So, we had met years and years ago. Yeah. So then fast forward, we crossed paths again for a little bit there at Cox Automotive Viato. And he left, opened up his deal. I was still there. And, kind of a roller coaster ride, but, they were great to me. It was a great job, everything else. And I finally left there. When I left, I left as one of the retail strategic directors, dealing with, large groups, and just happened to run into Jason again. And it was funny after we talked and we kind of ironed out some wrinkles, whatnot. he had two concerns. Number one concern he had, and Frank, you're going to laugh about this because you've seen the two of us coexist together. But he had one big concern was, is him and John going to get along? Yeah. So he was so concerned about John and I getting along. Well, now I'm sure there's times that he's laid in bed looking at Kelly going, I don't know what I did here, man. I got John and Chris now. These two are some thick as thieves.
And then, add Ronaldo in.
Yeah, then we bring Ronaldo in the fold. But no, I actually stood, Jasen and I, we stood in the parking lot of the office there. We're shaking hands and, excited about the adventure. This is May of 2022. May of 2022, and he was like, it was kind of funny. And I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember exactly how he said it, but it was almost like, gotcha. So, and I looked at him, I said, hey, man, this has all been in God's timing. And, we went through what we went through. You've gone through what you've gone through. I've gone through what I've gone through to get us here to this point. And it was 100% a divine intervention type deal. We're both strong with our family, strong with our faith. Anderson's the same way. So, the three of us, partnering up together like this was definitely, it was in God's timing. It was a blessing, and everything was just 100% in that perfect timing. And, this June, it's May, June. I think on paper it says June, but it's actually in May. 4 years, 4 years here with Jasen. I got that to our podcast,
dude. So that is so awesome to hear, because what you said. And let me back, Chris. How many kids you got?
4.
So you got 4. Man, my wife must not like me a lot. I only got 1, but she is
so much easier that way.
That one I hit the jackpot with, right? But I'm going to tell you this one. So I had Glenn Lundy on. He's got 9 kids.
Glenn got a tribe.
Jason's got 5. You got 4. But the common thing that I continue to hear, and I heard this with David Long when he was on as well, is that everything happened in everyone's lives according to God's plan. Mm-hmm. And everyone, we pride ourselves. I pride myself on being a strong Christian, and you might even see my logo with the crosses kind of embedded in the back. That's intentional, because at the end of the day, God is going to guide us where we need to go, and it's so cool to hear that He brought you guys together.
Yeah, right here is Ephesians 3:20. All glory to God, who's able, with His power within us, accomplish more than we ever thought or asked. And so, my faith walk was huge to leave. I was on Glenn Lundy's podcast. I went in deep about that. But yeah, there's so many signs for me that were just undeniable of what I needed to do. That allowed me to take that leap of faith. Because believe me, the first year or two, my wife didn't like it. She's like, you need to go back. This ain't working out. I took 6-figure hits on my income, with no safety net. I'm the sole provider. My wife doesn't work. She hasn't worked for 20-something years. It was a kick in the throat. And so, but here we are 13 years later, so still true.
Well, and it's so cool. It's always cool to have those wives that, stand behind you and beside you and in front of you when you need it to slow you down. And, mine, I've been with her 32 years total.
Yeah, 31 here.
But I'll be married 30 years in August. So, and without her and without God, I wouldn't be standing where I am today.
Yeah, but behind every successful man is even a more stronger woman. So
that's right.
And that's where, listen. And Jasen, I've said this publicly, and this is not going to be any surprise because he's heard me say it, but the transition from a very well-established, 800-pound gorilla like, Cox Automotive that I come from, this has been trials and tribs. And, with that, wife looked at me and said, okay, let's strap it on. Let's go, and she's been 100% supportive of this journey that we've been on. And I think one of the biggest things outside of just knowing Jasen for a long time and seeing what he had built was extremely attractive. Obviously, knowing who he is, him being the what I have dubbed as the grandfather to performance management, because so many businesses went to that performance management model, because of what he and Dale built over at Viato. Looking at that, but the thing that really stood out to me was the number one core value, as our company, is dealers first. And that right there just was like a breath of fresh air of, okay, we're publicly going to talk about it, that we're going to take care of our dealer partners before anything else. And, as we've continued to grow, one of the things in our C-suite meetings that Jason, John, Brett, myself, Ronaldo, we've all talked about, and the number one thing is, hey, listen, a team member, they can have all the accolades, they can have all this, all that, etc. But if they don't have the mindset of take care of the customer first, the company second, that you as the third individual will be taken care of when you take care of those two things first.
Yeah.
Those are things that, we do everything we can to model, live by, and not only have those words, but our actions and words very much intersect one another. And Jason built that. He built that 13 years ago, and we continue to respect it, live it, breathe it, die it.
Yeah, look, I think when you talk about that, like that's something that all those years at CarMax, I remember our CEO at the time, that's something he embedded in every associate was, look, we're going to take care of our people, right? Our people are going to take care of the customer.
Mm-hmm.
We'll take care of everything else. We don't need to chase the dollars. What we really need to worry about is taking care of our people first. Let those people take care of the customers, and the rest takes care of itself. So, dealers out there that are listening, right? Sometimes we get that a little bit backwards. We're chasing revenue, we're chasing profits, of course. But at the end of the day, what matters most is taking care of your people. And you heard it here on the buy side, and you'll continue to hear it from these guys and myself as we push the industry in different directions. There's always a push-pull going on, and right now it feels like we're a little bit being pulled all over the place. And that takes me to a little bit of our next topic, because right now what we're dealing with is and what I hear from everyone is this: Manheim Index just hit another record high. Now what? What do I do now? And that's a challenge, right? Like, that is a challenge that is very real, that people are faced with. So, knowing that, and either one of you can take this one on, this question, but knowing that we've hit a record high for that index, what are you telling your dealers?
Jason, I'm going to tee you up on this one. And Frank, if you don't mind, I want to do a little something here. Let me just flip my screen here for a second. But Jason, I'm going to tee you up for this. And Frank, if you want to throw that on the screen, this will help answer that question.
What do we got here?
So you're teeing me up, Chris? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Take over? All right.
Come on, baby.
So what I've done here is I've always tracked activity by shoppers, and I look at Google trending metrics and look at shopper activities. I used to pull it from Auto Trader Tune-Up Report. You used to get that each week from Auto Trader to tell you how many shoppers are in the market. I used to capture that every week for every client and watch shopper activity. But now I use Google Trends to do that data. And that's the red line there. And so the Google Trends, that's over a 5-year period, you're going to be able to see the activity of shoppers. And as the shopper activity goes up, the red line, you'll notice the green line follows. Now, the green line is our dealer's 2-week sale cycle. So as the shoppers start shopping, the volume, within a week or two, the dealer's volumes start going up. And it's verbatim. Every time that red line goes down, the dealer's volume goes down. Okay. So let's roll over just underneath where wholesale sold percentage, go around that part of time, 2021 range. And I only want to point that out. Yeah. Now move it over a little bit to the right by, just keep going a little bit more, and follow that blue line right there. So see where this blue line peaks, going back to wholesale percentage. So that peaked because our dealers volume after tax season in February, March, what was selling at the lane started going up. You see how the volume and the shopper goes up, then wholesale, what sells at the lane goes up. Before I go any deeper, I track shopper activity and I track my dealer's volume. And then I go into Black Book and I go look at wholesale stuff and I go look at average age and I'm like, okay, here's a wholesale report. I'm looking at retail report. I'm like, has anybody put these two together and see how this matches up? And so that's what this is. So I took the two key areas that I thought were important out of the Black Book was the sold percentage, because that gives me an indication if are we replacing cars? Are we stepping up for trade, stepping up at the lane? Or is the lane slowing down? If the lane's slowing down, why? Well, you notice that the lane doesn't start slowing down until retail starts dropping and shoppers start dropping. But it takes about a month. Because what happens is let's start at the dealer side. Things are slow this week. Dealers are like, it's kind of slow. Let's just see how next week goes. Next week, damn, it's been slow now 2 weeks. Maybe I need to drop and adjust some pricing. They start dropping pricing. Now we're 3 weeks into this slowdown, and now the dealer's 3 weeks into the slowdown. And by the fourth week, if it's still slow, they go, okay, it's really slow. We can't be buying cars anymore. We got age. We got to clear it out. So dealers, within 4 weeks of it slowing down, stop buying and start, really getting aggressive and cleaning things up. Mm-hmm. Now let's transition to wholesale. Wholesale does the same thing. Now, remember, we're already 3 to 4 weeks into the retail slowing down before the dealers stop buying. So then now we're 3 or 4 weeks in the retail slowdown, and wholesale goes, it's kind of slow. But you know what? I'm going to keep my floor up. I'm not going to give away my cars. And so they run again. And then they finally go, you know what? Maybe, and then now they're 2 or 3 weeks in the slowdown, then they start dropping their floor and then things start loosening up. But you can see how, look at that blue line, how it dropped down so significantly all the way through December. And why? Is because that green line and that shopper index went down. And then look at the black line. That's the average age of retail units. So as shoppers stop buying cars and dealers stop selling cars,
spike.
Yeah. So nothing gets sold at the wholesale.
Yep.
So here we are. At peak tax season, people in January, February, and March are at the lane buying cars and paying up for it because they're waiting for this tax season. So, of course, wholesale is going to be high. Wholesale won't stop and go down until
right here,
until probably May or June, because retail has been slow for 2 months. It happens every year, year after year.
So I remember, something that David Spisak said that I always loved. Like he said, hey, let's not be surprised by what's 100% predictable. What you're showing our audience and what you're saying is that these ebbs and flows are predictable.
Yeah. Volume goes up, wholesale sale rates are going to go up. Why did volume go up? Because the shoppers went up. When the shoppers go up and the volume goes up, the average age of what's sitting out there on the retail goes down. And man. And so I always talk about a false positive. So right now we're in this false positive mode. And what I mean by that, it feels very positive. Wholesale's up, volume's up, and so, oh shit, maybe I got to go out and buy some more. I'm missing out. Wholesale's up, things are selling, it's high dollar or volume. So, but it's false positive because if you keep falling in this trap, things are dropping and you're going to be stuck holding the bag. We're already seeing a drop in shopper activity due to this gas price hike already. We're seeing us drop in volume. We just went through 300 dealers one by one. I've seen a lot of the dealers' leads are starting to go down. I'm watching the shopper index, it's starting to drop. And then I'm looking at headlines with this gas prices shooting up, barrel oil going up, job losses going up because of AI. And I'm like, oh shit, it's tax season peak already kind of hit its. As a matter of fact, I did a video today about it. But yeah, it's I'm watching it because if the Iran war stops quick, if it's a war, if you want to call it that, whatever. Right now, it's not declared a war, but whatever. Let's just say it does stop pretty quick, and we get the oil flowing again through the shipyard or through the canal there or whatever it is. And it goes back down, then maybe people will. I think people might hold on to their tax return right now, not knowing if we're going to World War III, and so things slow down. And if dealers have been ramping up for all this, they're going to be stuck come April when it drops 20%.
Well,
the market will drop 20% traditionally.
Well, and what's interesting is that, I've seen, and I have so many dealers that have been ramping up. And, when I talk to them and ask them why, it's not because they've seen sales start to ramp up. They're anticipating, they're a little bit, to some degree, maybe gambling that they're going to have a pretty robust season. Now, I'm not saying that for dealers that, look, I was talking to a dealer who reached out to me and he's like, dude, I am blowing through cars. I am turning cars every 20, 25 days and I'm running out and I need to that dealer. I said, absolutely. We need to continue
100%.
We got to go find some inventory because you're doing all the right things. So some of the things you talked about, Chris, with GEO, he's doing that. He's got Glenn Lundy who's coaching him. He's got a buy team that's working hard. He's got all these things in place that he's thriving, right?
He's the exception though, Frank.
Right. And so that's what I mean. So I had, I'll give you another, like I had Rob Dell and Rob Ruth on, right? Like they're thriving, right? They're selling a bunch of cars, so they got to replenish, they got to keep buying. But Chris, when you're out there and you do a lot of coaching, I hear you, sometimes kicking people in the teeth and putting them in the headlock and all kinds of stuff, figuratively. But
sometimes,
but you're out there, you're seeing this, right? And you see everything that Jasen puts out there every single day. And it's gotta be a little bit frustrating on your end when you're talking to a dealer who says, well, I haven't seen the uptick in sales yet, but I got to go and I got to replenish and I got to stock up on inventory and I got to get into this world of paying what everybody else is paying. To that dealer, Chris, what are you saying to that dealer when you hear those statements?
I give him the WTF version, the Urban Dictionary side, not the Lotpop side of it. So I give him the Urban Dictionary of WTF because let's back that up just a little bit, Frank. You cannot sell from an empty shelf. So let me just clarify that. You have to have inventory because we are in the retail automotive industry.
That's right.
But you also have to have a level of expectation because many dealers today are buying inventory and stocking their shelves based upon lagging data from 60 days ago. They're not buying the inventory based upon how their store and their market with their people are truly retailing their inventory. If you take it long before, Frank, we had things like, the V-Autos of the world and all these various different tech stacks out there and the 50 million different ways that you slice, this whole pie up. How inventory? We looked at inventory based upon what I can sell it for, and we give a gee whiz less about what the Manheim Market Index is. So what I tell dealers today when, I need to get on this bandwagon, I need to load up for the summer selling season. Well, number one thing I go back to is what Jasen just, walked through inside of the data and showed them like, whoa, time out. If we're in a downtrend and the shopper index is declining and we're watching the average days in inventory go up and everybody is pulling back on the reins of a bunch of vehicles going through the sale that we're no selling, why would you go out and pay up for somebody's mistake that they're getting rid of and overload on inventory and outrun the capability of your dealership? Because many times I watched it with a publicly held trade company. I'm not going to mention which publicly held company it was. But a general manager comes in, the store had never stocked or sold. They never stocked more than 80 cars, and they never sold more than 50. Ramps it all the way up to 225 cars.
Why?
That is no exaggeration. Okay?
Why would someone do that?
Same question I asked. Okay? But the point being is if you've never been there, How do you know what it looks like? And when we outstock the capability of our store, you got to put the ego to the side. And I'm King Kong. I can sell anything. I got the best sellers in the country. We're closing in our internet department at 25% when the industry says you should be doing it at 10 to 15. We're closing on our showroom floors at 35%. I'll put anything out there. Okay, cool. Did you check your fixed ops to make sure that you could handle the flow?
Yeah. So it's got to be, look, at the end of the day, it's got to be a well-oiled machine, and all departments. Like, you can't live in these silos that, I'm going to go buy the cars and the shop needs to just build it.
Get them done.
Right. We have to abandon the silos. And I think that's, something that, we continue to see, like the best of the best out there. There are no silos in those organizations, in those dealerships. Right. And the other part of this is that, something that you talked about, like this individual that went out and bought 200 plus cars, that was all based on a gut instinct, a gut feeling, and not baked in the information and in the data that is out there. If you just spend the time to go and search for it, but when you're searching for it, it's one thing to search for it and find the information. That's great. But if you don't execute on it, doesn't matter how much information you have at your fingertips.
Nope. But if you don't understand your market either, and I'm not talking about all of the talking head market reports, I'm talking about literally what you as an individual dealership have exemplified as your capabilities to be able to do or not do.
Yeah.
Because I'm all for stretch goals. I'm all for it. But you just can't overstretch yourself in a position that is nothing you've ever charted that type of territory.
So something I continue to hear, and there's a little bit of a mixed bag around new cars, right? Like, some are saying new cars are starting to stabilize. Some are saying that, hey, there's still not enough new cars out there, so you better continue to ramp up your used cars. Like, what say you guys?
Well, I put it out probably about 6 months ago, and I'll put it out here again. I'll put this flag out. I don't care. I could be wrong, and I probably am. I think, again, this is before this whole Iran bull stuff going on, but I was saying that new cars would hit 18 million. We never have, but we hit 17.4, 17.6. We've come close. And I'm like, I think we'll get it to 18 million, if not this year, next year. Probably more likely next year, if everything kind of stays afloat. The reason why I was saying that was it seems like inventory is stacking up. And with interest rates being high and consumers being pretty buried still in cars, the incentives are going to have to come. And this administration is so much on ICE vehicles, not just ICE, but ICE vehicles, right? Gas powered vehicles and oil that right. I think the lobbyists of these OEMs will be like, hey, we need some help here. We got inventory. You want us to build these factories. You want us to invest all this money in this states. We need something in return. And not it'll be a cash for clunkers, but something that will increase that volume, both by the lobbyists to make, get those votes, but also the oil industry. And then this administration pushes something out. And they might maybe due to this Iran thing, because things slow down. They're like, all right, we got to do something to get this economy going. And the auto industry impacts 30% of the economy. Let's freaking do this, right? And so I wouldn't be surprised if something like that happens. I think we'll hit 18 million. And if that's the case,
yes,
here comes the trades. Here comes, and with the interest. Oh, and I think this is the other part I was trying to wrap my head around on new cars. There's a difference between people taking 0% and people taking the rebates, right? So, and what I mean by that, let's say I get let's throw out a number, $55,000 truck. I can take the $5,000 rebate and buy it for 50, or I take 0% and buy it for 55. So if we're all leaving the market at 55, that holds the used car values a little bit higher, 48, right? But if they go for the rebate and buy it at 50, well, then used car values go to 43. So how do we know that's happening? Well, one, when you can, why get 0% when I can write off my interest now?
Yeah.
Still 0%. If I'm paying 7%, but I can write off my interest, that's the new law. And it was there before. maybe I go ahead and go with the rebate and get the $5,000 off and just write off my interest in my tax return, right? And so will people start buying the interest or the rebate and forget about the percentage? And it all depends on how that plans out. But again, just imagine that if we do hit 18 and people are taking the rebates because they can write off their interest anyways, and interest rates are kind of high, you know, they're going to take that higher and be able to write that off. Well, the value is going to be cheaper. So we'll just see how that pans out. But that's
that's super cool, because my follow-up question you already answered. My follow-up question was, what's the lag effect on used car values if new cars take off or new cars are stabilizing? What's the lag effect? And you just kind of walked us through like how that all starts to play out a little bit.
Well, and you've been involved with this clubhouse, and for years, the last 3 years, everybody shortage. Last 4 or 5 years, cars. I'm like,
there ain't been no shortage though.
There hasn't been a shortage. There's no shortage. We've been selling 15 million, and even if there's less cars, there's less shoppers. There's only a shortage if supply exceeds demand, or if demand exceeds supply. And so there hasn't been. The shopper indexes have been down every year after year. Inventory's down. There's no shortage. Second thing, well, the only reason why, we don't have the right cars. Okay, well, because we don't get these lease returns. It's not because we didn't sell these cars. We still sold over 15 million cars through this stuff, 13 to 15 million. We just weren't leasing cars because banks weren't putting leasing out. They didn't know where to put the values were going up. No one was leasing anything. So
but Jason, we did. There was a 3-year period of time there that we didn't have inventory to lease.
No, we sold it. Like I said, we still sold 14, 15 million, which was more than the recession. We just didn't put them in leases to make sure they're coming back because there was no residuals to be able to do it. I mean, the banks weren't putting out residuals. Nobody, they're paying $5-10 over sticker for these cars. People are overpaying for them, and they weren't putting them in leases. And then, so that's why we don't have these lease returns popping in the 3 to 4 year old cars that everybody's missing, right? It's like, so there is a shortage of the right cars and the nice cars.
Yes.
Yeah.
But there's no shortage of cars.
Yeah. And that's always been something that I've hung on
for
to.
The shoppers. There's no shortage for the people that are out there. Because again, there's 20% shoppers and buyers.
I've hung on to there's plenty of cars out there, but if you're looking for, that V8 Silverado, right? Like you're not going to see a lot of the V8 Trail Boss Silverados out there. But you will find a lot of 2.7s out there. Right, like there are pickup trucks out there, right? Like the I guess if I'm looking at that and saying, look, the aggregate stayed the same. Like there's the same number of pickups, perhaps, but the difference is now that makeup of the quality of the pickup or the quality pickup that the consumer wants is not out there the way that it was, perhaps.
And Chris, I want you to chime in on this, but real quick before I forget, like my wife's car, we bought it used a couple years ago, and it's a 2021 BMW X4 M Series loaded up. But guess what? It was missing remote start, and it's missing cool seats. Why? Because there was a shortage on those parts. So these cars coming back in, even to your point, you can't equate them to the masses because some have them, some don't because of this COVID. There's deductions in the MS and the Windows stickers. Yeah. So all these values that are out there are bullshit too because they're just not accurate because these cars that do come back are going to be these morphodite stuff that didn't have heated seats, that bench seats instead of captains, stuff like that. Chris, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny you say that because my wife, when we bought my wife's car, she's got an X6 and it doesn't have a heated steering wheel. It's just like, how can this not have a heated steering wheel?
This is like
because Frank, they
didn't have the parts for that. They had the parts for these other things that you have, and so it's got everything else except some of these options that you see on the cars that are coming.
Yeah, with the dark car with the dark interior, she was like, "I need cool seats." I'm like, "Oh, you can get."
But here's what happened though. In 2022, I distinctly remember this. To your point of missing this, missing that, doesn't have this, doesn't have that, part shortage, etc. A Porsche dealership in 2022 across the nation. And for any viewers and listeners that are Porsche dealers, you will remember this. You could buy the car. But then once you went through F&I and you went to take delivery, they had to hook the machine up to it, and you had to set the seat, whoever the primary driver was, to exactly where you wanted it. They unplugged the machine and said, "Hey, we'll call you when we get the part come in, but until then, you can't move your seat." I'm dead serious. I was like, "Excuse me?" And they went, "Yeah, that's what we got to do, Chris." And I went, Well, that's got to be the dumbest thing I've ever heard of. But, Frank, back to this Mannheim thing and that level of expectation. And as we see these ebbs and flows, and as Jason articulated and showed earlier, when you get that shopper index decline, when you get, a bunch of no sales and wholesale coming down, the average age going up. Okay. When you start seeing all those things happen, dealers need to reset their expectation. And there's times that we have to manufacture, or as David Long has always said, redefine or create your own market. Okay. But you have to redefine those things. Yeah. But you have to have a different level of expectation. Yes. 90 days ago, 30 days ago, I might have been running XYZ PRU, but I can't sell from an empty shelf, and I can't take a car and price from cost up. If my market is here, and this is where I can sell, and this is all the margin it's going to give me, I have to accept that.
Yes.
I've got to redefine it.
Yes.
And accept it.
Yes.
Okay. So that's just what really frustrates me about when everybody tries to bring a wholesale guideline into a retail business.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense.
Wholesale's global, retail's regional at best.
So when you look at all of this information and our guests, they're hearing a lot, and it's probably making some people's heads spin. There's probably some things maybe some people have seen or heard that maybe they haven't looked at it that way before. The overarching question is, how do I use this to go and acquire inventory? Right? Because now if I'm looking even and I'm hearing what you guys are saying, and and I'm looking at all the tea leaves, I might get a little bit paralyzed with indecision. How do I use all this information so that I make the right decision?
Jason, I'm going to take the first part of this because you're going to dive a lot deeper with this and give just as equally, if not better, an explanation. I would tell every viewer and every listener, this is the buy side. We're talking about acquisition here. But we're also talking about you got to retail cars to be able to acquire cars, but we're buying cars to retail. The number one thing I would tell you, if you're not a client of ours at Lotpop, what you really need to do is you need to dig into your inventory management tool, and you have to understand the identity of who you are. If this is how you transact, if this is what you are doing, that's what you're doing, not what the rest of the world's doing.
Yeah.
Then if you can dig into your inventory management tool and at least understand that, you're 10, 15 steps ahead of your competition out there.
Yeah.
Jason, I'll flip it to you.
Well, no, and here, I get hesitant on acquisition only because of the fact we deal with the now what, now that you own this car, now what? And the only reason why I say I get hesitation on acquisition is when it comes to inventory, I can help you. In leads, I can help you. What I mean by that is I can be in a meeting call with a dealer. I can pull up a car and say, hey, let's redo these photos. Let's redo these descriptions. Let's adjust the pricing, and we can make an impact. I can say, hey, you know what? This lead's not being followed up with. Shit, I can pick up the phone and call the lead. I can do something about it. But my hands are tied. I don't have their checkbook. I don't have their pencil. I don't have their auction pass to go buy cars for them. So I feel hesitant on how to tell dealers how to buy, because if I can do it for them, then it's a different story. But I would also say this to Chris's point, knowing your profile, one of the things that we did in Viato, they have with the strategy page where it does the segment and price point and say, okay, compact SUVs between 25 and 30 grand, you're -2. You're heavy, or +2, you need to buy them. We changed that around to segment, price point, but how many leads to how many cars. So I could say, hey, 20 to 25 grand, I got 100 leads to sell 20 cars to. Or large pickup trucks, I got 80 leads with 10 trucks. And oh, by the way, trucks between 20 and 25 grand, I have 30 leads with 2 trucks. I got 30 leads to sell 2 trucks to. I need more of those. And so we then point you to those trucks that were 20 to 25 grand that moved off your lot. So we trying to get dealers to what Chris's point is, what's your profile? A majority of your leads over here on 20 to 30 grand cars, and you don't have any, but yet you're carrying 50 grand cars and no leads are on them? Or are you carrying a lot of compact SUVs when majority of your leads are on trucks and you don't have them? So just understanding that profile. And then when you talk about, once you dig into it and you talk about individual cars and go, hey, you had a 2021 Sierra Denali that you sold at 101%, and you have 5 leads on this truck.
Mm-hmm.
You have nothing to sell them. You got 5 leads when it was 101 and it's a 2021 Sierra Denali. Why don't you buy one of those? Because Chris talked about turnaround time. So a lot of dealers go buy cars to find an audience. I'm going to go buy this car, but I'm going to have to hurry up through turnaround time so I can get it online. So then I can get some leads and buy an audience. See if I can find an audience. Well, I'm going, hold on. Why don't we buy to an active audience? How about we buy that 2021 Sierra Denali because it sold at 101%. And day one that I buy it, I got 5 people I could talk to today. Let's do that. Let's do that. And not have to worry about my turnaround time as much, because I can call 5 people right off the bat and then tell them. And if they're interested, then I can send them photos and videos and get those stuff turned around. So I can point them in that direction, right? And say, these are the best practice based on your profile. And this falls within the category of where all your leads are and where you're short in inventory.
So audience, this man just said, hey, I'm hesitant to give advice on where to go buy, what to buy. But he just told me and told you, hey, I can tell you to go buy that 21 Sierra Denali because of percent to market, where you have leads, what you sold in the past. All of these things matter on the buy side of things. And so, for everyone that's out there, everyone that's listening, everyone that tuned in to hear this, you have to make sure that you know your inventory. As Brian Kramer, my friend, has said many times, know that you're the best end user on a product. And if you don't know that you're the best end user, then you better have something that tells you the right information, the right data that coaches you up to tell you, hey, you're the best end user on that piece of inventory. You need to go buy it. Gentlemen, I knew that you guys would bring a lot of information, and I knew that we would also run out of time. And I'm going to have you guys back on because we're almost at an hour here. But in closing, let's just talk about this for a little bit.
Okay.
When you look at the profile of a dealer who is winning right now, so take your best clients. What is the profile of that dealer? What are they doing differently than the others out there?
Well, I'll tell you the number one thing that they do. The number one thing they do is they have 2 very, very, very regimented pieces: clarity, discipline. That's 2 of the biggest pieces that they have. Is they have a clear direction of what their identity is, or as Jason calls it, the profile. He calls the profile, call it identity. They have a very, very clear direction of who they are, and they have a discipline regardless of what's going on, what the talking heads like us may actually say. They have the discipline to stick with their process regardless of what else is going on in the world, in the nation, in their region, in their market. And then one third final piece that they have is they know how to adapt when massive change comes in, because they have those disciplines and clarity of which direction they're going.
Okay. All right.
I would add the second and third element. As any vendor will probably tell you, the successful stores are a top-down approach. So they have dealers, GMs involved. But the kicker in that is the second step is the accountability aspect of it. It's one thing, like me being owner of the company, right? I delegate and say, hey, guys, I need this. Let's go here. Let's do that. And then I assume it's getting done, right? But if I'm not following up and making it accountable and making sure it is, sometimes a lot of shit gets thrown through the cracks. So it's one thing you say, yeah, top down, my dealer's on the call all the time. Okay, great. is anybody after the fact circling around and making sure it's accountable? Is the dealer busy and he's off to, his 20 group and doing other things? Or is he making sure everybody's accountable? Or is he making sure the GM is making sure that shit's getting done and there's accountability aspect to it? Yeah. So you can have a dealer top-down approach, but if nobody's then following up on the accountability part of it, then that's the other. And that's where the Rob Ruth comes into play. They've been a client for probably 8 years now. I could show you where, they had a lot of aging problem, but it's the dealer. And he's involved. He's in there changing prices and stuff, 300 plus cars. And he's doing it remote from Florida while the dealerships in Pennsylvania in the meantime. But he's got a great accountability partner with Rob Bell there that will actually make sure all that stuff's being done. So top down, but you can't just have the boss show up on the meeting and then walk out and go do their own thing. Somebody's got to make sure the accountability aspect's there.
Yeah, no, I think that's. I mean, you guys couldn't have closed this episode out any better than that. I mean, Rob Ruth, I had him on last week, and that's the very thing they talked about is being extremely disciplined, understanding. I think at one point Rob Dell said, look, there's going to be mistakes made when you're buying cars. Always there's going to be mistakes. It's how you handle the mistake after you buy it, right? Are you a dealer that's disciplined enough to say, look, I made a mistake. We got to get out of this car now. We got to take our poison and be done with it. Or are you a dealer that's holding on, wishing, hoping, praying that this car is going to sell and you're going to get out of the mistake that was made on the buy side of things, right? So, look, it was a pleasure having you guys on today. Always super informative. I love talking to you both because every time we talk, there's always some enlightenment that happens. The one thing that I'll close out here and say, you heard a couple of things. One, whether Jasen and Chris and myself, we've all said it. And Todd, my co-host who wasn't able to be here today, rest up, buddy. You'll be back next week. I know it. But keep Todd in your prayers as he continues to battle shingles. He put that on his Facebook and LinkedIn today. So continue to keep him in your prayers. But the one thing that all of us have continued to say is that this buying side of things, it's a full-time job. It's a full-time job, just like F&I, just like sales. It's a full-time job in the dealership. Fixed ops, all of it falls under various umbrellas. There are no silos, and there has to be active involvement. And Jasen said this, there has to be active involvement from the top down, right? I remember at Off Lease Only, sitting with my COO till 11 o'clock at night, sometimes changing prices on thousands of cars, right? He was that engaged in what we were doing as a company. And all that was happening behind the scenes. No one ever got to see that. I felt it the next morning when I had to be up at 5 a.m. again, but no one got to see, hey, this is what it takes to keep this motor going, right? And so that's the piece that I will leave our audience with, that if you need help, if you need assistance, pick up the phone, call these guys, call me, talk to a friend. Confidence happens not in isolation. I said this morning on Clubhouse. You can't have confidence in isolation. Confidence happens when you're surrounded by a bunch of people who have knowledge, who have the information and the data to help support you. So if you don't have that, reach out. You can absolutely get it from these guys. You can get it from me. This is the Buy Side. I appreciate you guys tuning in.
Thank you.
Until next week. I have some surprises for next week for the audience. We're going to have a couple dealers on that are going to talk about their successes on the Buy Side, and a couple of guys that I worked with back in my CarMax days that are running some big organizations now. So pretty excited about that. Again, Jasen, Chris, thank you guys.
Thank you, Frank. Appreciate it.